Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our training for the South Asian Bar Association of North America's Pro Bono Clinic, very first Pro Bono Clinic during the SABA North America Conference in San Francisco that is currently scheduled from July 14th through 17th. I'm going to introduce now Sucharita Varanasi, who is our Pro Bono Director for SABA North America, who will get this program started. Suchi?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we are thrilled to be hosting our first pro bono project at the SABA conference this year. It will be on July 14th. It's a Thursday at 10:30 a.m. And there are details that are in on the SABA website in the agenda. And so we will be sending all of those who have registered more information with respect to logistics, how we're getting there from the hotel, as well as lunch and the like. So that will be in a forthcoming email. So I have the pleasure today of introducing Seema, and I will ask her to say her last name because I know I'm going to butcher it.
It's Alizada.
Alizada. Seema has led the way in the Afghan crisis, both in the Bay Area and nationally. Seema is committed to serving the Afghan community, and she manages the Afghan Support Project at the PARS Equality Center. She has personally provided pro bono immigration legal services to the Afghan community for the last 10 years. In addition to her own pro bono representation, she has been leading outreach efforts to secure pro bono attorneys to represent the Afghan community in affirmative asylum applications, humanitarian parole, TPS, which is what we're going to be talking about today, adjustment, and other applications. Her tireless work and dedication to ensuring members of the community get legal services is extremely admirable. Seema is an active member of AILA, Afghan Response Task Force, which received the 2022 Michael Maggio Memorial Pro Bono Award. Seema received the 2022 AILA NorCal Pro Bono Champion Award as well. So thank you, Seema, and thank you so much for offering to do this training for us, as well as running this project at conference.
Of course, we are all very excited to have Saba come out here, and it's exciting for me personally because right now I'm in one of the conference rooms. That's why I'm sorry about the chalkboard, but you know, when you all come out here, it's going to be super rewarding. I promise you it'll be like one of the highlights of your conference time. It's really the reason that I get up in the morning and come here every day, Monday through Friday. We are just meeting Afghan new arrivals face to face from the beginning of the crisis. And as soon as Afghanistan fell, we were involved, highly involved. And then we moved into this local project that you all are going to be helping with. So I want to make sure I reserve time for questions. So I'm going to try to go as fast as I can. We're going to be talking about temporary protected status, as Suchi said, and I'm just going to delve into the first slide. So Afghan temporary protected status, there's a lot of dates. First of all, before I start, I want to let you know there's much more to TPS than what I'm going to cover today. So you have received some resources by email, like just about an hour or so ago, and you will receive more information from me to get you prepared. And the day of our clinic, which is July 14th, we will have material there and a short introduction. So I don't want you to be intimidated because there's a lot of things I'm going to go over today that just might overwhelm you. So just take a deep breath and I'll make sure to do a good job to train you. So TPS was recently designated for Afghanistan, and it's an 18-month protection. The individuals that are going to be coming on July 14th are going to be already speaking to an individual from our organization to orient them about what is TPS, why they're applying for TPS, and what items to bring for the day of the clinic. However, because of my 16 years plus experience running these type of clinics, I do know that the day of, you might receive many questions from the individuals that participate from the community. We do have question cards the day of, which you can raise a question card, and one of our legal experts, which I will be one of them along with some of my colleagues, will be able to come to your table and answer those specific questions. But just so you can get some of this information under your belt, the designation, it's the initial period to sign up for TPS. And this initial period runs from May 20th, 2022 till November 20th, 2022. So this initial period of time, so this initial period of time. So this can be renewed if redesignated. And sorry, this date is wrong. That's why I kind of stuttered there. It's supposed to be 2023. So this a period of time can be redesignated, and they have to file in this initial designation period. There are exceptions to this rule. And if you do have questions about that, you can raise your question card the day of, and I'll come and talk to the person. The main date that you have to really worry about is, has the person been here since March 15th, 2022? Even though there's another date that USCIS has presented, which is May 20th, 2022. Which is the date that they have to be continuously present in the US. This relates to their entry date. So you just want to make sure that the person has entered the United States since March 15th, 2022. And we're going to already be screening the individuals that are coming to the clinic to ensure that they fall, and almost all the Afghan parolees that are here, they fall in that designation period because it's so recent. And they all mostly came between August and October of 2021. Okay, so what goes into an Afghan TPS package? TPS just sounds really intimidating to many practitioners, and many of you do not have immigration experience, and it's kind of seems like a lot of numbers and form numbers. So just, it's not difficult. And when you get to understand the forms, I guarantee that none of this is difficult for you to achieve and understand. So this is what would go into a general packet. And these are the forms that you are going to be assisting individuals to fill out by hand or on your laptops. So you're going to have, there's a very simple form called a G1145 that almost requires very little information. It's just like the name and phone number of the applicant. And this is so that they receive an email or a text to let them know that their application has been received and they receive a case number. The next form is Form I-912. And this is an application for fee waiver. And this is what you're mostly gonna, this is a little bit trickier, and we're gonna spend some time going over it today. And I do have a video just dedicated to fee waivers that I'll share with you at a later time. If the person is not going to be using a fee waiver application for various reasons, they can also pay the fee. And we're gonna discuss what the fee is. Form I-821 is the essential TPS application. This is the main application to apply for TPS. All of these applications do require supporting documentation that we're going to go over. Form I-765 is the application for employment authorization. This application is required despite the fact that many of the individuals already have EAD cards or employment authorization cards. And the reason that we reapply for them is because currently they have a card that says C11 on it, which is for their parole status. And they are going to be seeking status as a TPS recipient. And so their EAD cards would change. And the reason we want that is because there are times where the USCIS will give a blanket extension of time for those EAD cards so that they don't have a gap in their employment ability to get job, they need to have a current EAD card that is not expired. So they do have to file for a new I-765. It does require 2 passport photos. If the person that's coming at your table doesn't have a document, we're going to have plenty of flags and post-its for you to write down the additional information they still need to complete their packets. And the last one is one that you probably won't be doing in the clinic, which is they have an optional ability to file for advanced parole or form I-131. I will not be training you on this today. This would be for an individual who wants to file for advanced parole to travel outside the United States. They can file this with their initial package or at a later time, but there is no fee waiver, and the application for travel document costs $575. So most of the individuals that you'll be seeing are going to opt not to do this application. And if they would like to, we can help them. An expert can come to your table. Okay, so if the person is paying a fee, I'm not going to park on this for a long time. There is a USCIS, the fees are different depending on the situation. The TPS application itself is $50, and there's an $80 biometrics fee if they're between the age of 14 and 65. For the EAD card, it's a considerably bigger amount of money. It's $410 if they're between 14 and 65 years of age. And it doesn't cost any money for those that are 14 or over, under 14 or over 65. Now you're probably wondering, why the heck would somebody 6 years old have an EAD card? Well, they do, because that's a form of identification. It makes no sense, but it is one of their main forms of government ID. And we do recommend that they're filed for children as well as those who are retired and not working. So there is a form, like I said, I-131 that we just discussed that has a $575 fee that has no option for a fee waiver. All the fees have to be paid by personal check, money order, or cashier's check payable to U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And if you're helping someone fill out a money order check, then do not abbreviate that. Please write, and this instructions will be at your table as well. Credit card forms are available, but they are not recommended for anyone filing with various family members to this same card, because oftentimes, as we all know, if we have multiple charges on a credit card for the same amount, your credit card company will stop the charge. So if the person is not one person, we don't recommend that the credit card form be used. So we're going to go to the next slide. Most of the individuals that are coming to our clinic July 14th are going to need a fee waiver. The fee waiver form itself is not truly complex, but fee waivers are like the #1 thing that USCIS rejects. So we have to be super careful that we file the fee waiver properly. And there's a lot of blanks that you're going to see on the actual form, and it could be a little bit confusing for even an immigration attorney. So I have provided to you by email 2 examples. We are only going to be filing 2 types. One is for individuals that receive a means tested benefit, such as food stamps or Medi-Cal, and for individuals that our income is at the level that is acceptable. So there are 3 bases for fee waivers. Like I just said, means tested benefits, someone who receives a governmental benefit. If it's outside of food stamps or Medi-Cal or cash aid, you should raise your card at your table to ask an expert if that particular benefit is acceptable. The person does have to have, and we're going to discuss the documentation. They can't just attest like in court that they do get that. For a USCIS fee waiver, you actually have to have documentation. So income-based would mean that there's a chart that is provided by USCIS, and you're going to have this chart at your table. So if the person doesn't receive a means tested benefit, which is going to be almost no one, because most of the Afghan parolees receive benefits of some sort, even if they don't get food stamps or cash aid because they work, Oftentimes they get Medi-Cal. As long as their Medi-Cal is at no cost, they are able to do it through means tested benefit, and you don't have to worry about doing the income based. But let's say, for example, somebody has brought their taxes and they have filed, and or their income is like they have proof of their income and they're just a single person. That's number one, which would be household size 1. So they have to show that their income is at or below $20,385. We are not going to be filing on the basis of financial hardship. I am going to show you the examples towards the end of the presentation. So we're going to go to the next slide and talk about the documentation before I show you samples of these various fee waivers. So if you're going to be filing based on a means tested benefit, you have to have proof or a verification of benefits letter from the agency, from the person you're assisting. We are already going to be providing this information to those attending so that they can get these letters ahead of time. We also have a social service agency in our actual building area where if they are part of this county, Alameda County, they are able to go that day and pick it up. If Medicaid, if it's proof of Medicaid or Medi-Cal, it has to be no share of cost. So we just discussed a little bit ago about the fee waiver based on income, and I showed you the chart I-912P. This chart is going to be on your table so that you could verify if you need to do it based on this basis. If you are going to be doing it based on income and not based on a means tested benefit, then you do have to have an IRS 1040 form or proof of current income. And if the income is different than what was on the taxes, then you do have to show that based on the recent pay stubs. These are different resources available to you. This is a guidance that I wrote, and this information, all of this information that I'm providing in more detail will be in this guidance. And for some reason, I can't open it for you. Also, there is information on the USCIS website and on our actual Afghan support page. So for a minute here, I am going to show you some examples of I'm going to show you some examples of fee waivers. So we are going to, most of the fee waivers that you are going to do are going to be based on means tested benefit. So this is a sample, and this sample has been emailed to you. Sorry that I'm having a little technical difficulty getting just that one page. So we're just going to have to do a double page here. So here it shows you like what basis are you filing? So when you do fill out this form, you check off, are you filing based on 1, 2, or 3? For this, it's best practice not to pick more than one basis. Like if the person receives food stamps, that's enough. You can just check off this. So try to not choose, it's not like you need to choose all the bases to be approved. In fact, it's better just to choose one. As long as you have the documentation. You're going to put the name of the individual. Here in this example, I've used it from another paralegal. They've put N/A in the forms that you fill out. Do not applicable. Just leave it blank if it doesn't apply to the person. You're going to put their A number. And there's a video link from Loom that I've sent you inside one of the documents that are attached to the email that shows you like different documents from Afghan nationals so you can understand where you would find an A number. But an A number would usually be on their prior EAD card or their I-94. And I know for most people that doesn't make any sense what that is. So please watch that video. It's just 9 minutes. So it'll give you a little introduction. Here you put the date of birth and the social security number of the person. Let's move over to this page. If what the marital status is of the individual, and you put their name, and their A number, their date of birth, and then you're going to write self because this is for them. And the form that's being filled out, this would be form I-821 and I-765. So the day that you're going to be there, all this information will be in a notebook next to you in a binder, and it'll have a sample that pertains to TPS. Don't forget here to put the total number of forms. You're going to be doing 2 forms. You're going to be doing the work permit I-765 and the TPS form. So you're going to put 2 here. And then here you're going to fill up the name of the person that's receiving this means tested benefit. So that would be the individual you're helping, self. And then the name of the agency here, it's Social Services Agency of Santa Clara. You can abbreviate and what the benefit is. If you have 2 benefits forms showing Medi-Cal and food stamps, it's okay to put both of them down as long as you have proof of both. But if the person receives Medi-Cal and food stamps, but only brought proof of their food stamps, just go ahead and put just the proof that you have, which is food stamps. This is not like an attestation of everything they're receiving. This is just talking about the benefit that they are showing proof of. If they don't know when they received their benefit, when they started to receive it, you could use the tilde symbol and just say approximately when, and then say current or present, that they're currently receiving it. So the weirdest part about the fee waiver form is you just have to be comfortable skipping a bunch. So you're going to be skipping all this section here about the income. You're also going to be skipping, just don't do this NA. Sorry that my sample has it. If you do it, it's not a big deal. It's just better to leave things blank when they don't pertain to your client, and you're not required to put N/A. So here you would leave this blank. Here it's talking about, sorry that it's kind of hard to read, but it asks, what's your annual household income? Since we're not filing based on that, you're also going to leave that blank. You're going to leave this financial hardship part blank. And don't forget, if this isn't making sense to you, you have this sample in your email and you can review it at a later time. You're going to skip this part because it's related to financial hardship basis. And then you're going to make sure not to skip down here because we need the information regarding the requester, the person you're assisting. Can they read and understand English? Most of them, it's really split, because there's a lot of people proficient and some that are not. So if they used an interpreter, then you would have to have the interpreter section of the form filled out. We do have interpreters for July 14th available for your tables. And then you have to put if they knew English, and they put their phone number, email address, and then they sign on page 6. They sign. Whenever you have them sign, remind them, and this is really important for the I-765 EAD or work authorization card, they have to sign in the box. And if it goes like seriously out of the box, you have to do it again. If it's just slightly out, it's okay. But the EAD card is the one that you can't have them leave that box because that gets scanned on their EAD card. And if it goes outside the box, they will be sent a letter to redo that signature. Black or blue pen is okay for the signature, but if you are doing printing, all immigration forms have to be filled out with black ink. Okay, so we're going to page 7, and this part you're going to skip. It's about family members. Even if the person you're assisting is like a family of 5 individuals, for example, you're going to do a fee waiver for each person. You don't want to use the same fee waiver form. It's going to be very similar, but it's going to have and you could have us make copies, but that person's name has to be in the requester section. That's going to be the best practice for us. Although there is another way that people do this, where they add family members. For the sake of the fact that immigration denies these all the time, we like to do it per individual. And then did any person prepare this? That day you are a preparer, even though you're not going to have a G28 or you're not going to be attorney of record. However, you did prepare this, and you would say yes and the name of the individual you prepared it for. And then you're going to go ahead and we're going to have these pre-filled out with like our address here, and you don't have to provide your own address or phone number, and you should not, because you're a volunteer for Parks Equality Center and you are going to be filling out a confidentiality form that day, and you're going to go ahead and sign. Here, you're going to be signing in the box, and then that's that. And then here is a sample of a verification of Medi-Cal. And there's various samples that I also have here to show you. Different counties, like here it says like CalFresh, it'll tell you from what date. Some counties tell you the start date and some counties don't. Here it's good to check if it's Medi-Cal, it has to show that there is 0 cost per month. Okay, the one that I love best is food stamps or CalFresh. Here in California, they call it CalFresh because it's just like so easy. I am not going to go over this income-based fee waiver because I don't think you're going to see them, at the clinic. I will be sharing the fee waiver video with you. So if you're really interested and concerned about the fee waiver form, you will be able to practice. So I am going to go over, sorry about this. I'm just going to go over like a sample right now of a TPS application. And this sample that I'm using today is redacted. The sample that I have redacted, it's not the most ideal sample because this individual there was a DV situation and they did not have an EAD card or a social security card, which is not going to be common for what we see in the clinic that day. However, it gives you a really good idea. We're going to have pre-made cover letters, and there's going to be spaces for you to fill in the extra documentation. But basically, it's going to be pre-filled out with the mailing. The mailing address that we're going to have on the cover letters is for USPS post office. But if they wanted to use UPS or DHL or another courier like FedEx, they would have to send it to a different address. You're gonna fill in the applicant name and the space on the cover letter and their A number. And basically what the application for TPS, the packet contains. You're not going to have this G28 because you're not going to go on record. This is pro se. They're just filing on their own. There's going to be a form I-821, like we discussed, the TPS application. And there is a work permit application. And then, I'm going to show you this as we go through the packet. The fee waiver we've already reviewed, and there's this G1145 e-notification. It's optional, but it's helpful. So they have to give like evidence of their nationality, which is basically, I encourage you to watch that 9-minute video where I show you what like an Afghan passport looks like, what a Tuskera is, the fact that most people don't have birth certificates. They have what's called an Afghan Tuskera. Tuskera, T-A-Z-K-E-R-A, is a national identity document. Anything that's in Dari or Pashto, which are the main languages in Afghanistan, has to be certified English translation. That means they have to have a translation. If you have a question about this day, use your question card and I'll come around to make sure that your document is correct. So they have to certify that, they're Afghan national, and they do this by showing their Afghan passport with their entry stamp or their Afghan Tuskera, which is their national ID card. One of these would be suitable. This is what you're usually going to see. Then they have to show their evidence of their date of entry. So that's going to be a form I-94. If your individual that you're assisting does not have an I-94, which is an arrival departure record, I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. And that's also on my video, that 9-minute video that I sent on Loom. Then you can ask us and we can try to pull it up for them. We have application CBP1 where we could try to do a face recognition on them and pull it up and take a screenshot, or we can pull it up on our computers. So then the passport with the entry stamp shows the date of entry for the parolee that you're assisting. And the stamp will say like OAR, Operation Allies Rescue. That's what it stands for, parolee or parole. And that's their status for the individuals that you're assisting. And they're applying now to go to TPS status. And so you want to make sure you get that entry stamp. And then we need to show evidence that they're continuous and physically, like they're continuously residing in the US and that they have physically resided here. Okay. So remember the dates that we talked about, like that March 15th. So you can do like, right now we're in June. So March, April, May, June. And then we're going to be in July. So you want to at least have like one thing per month. Like if they had a lease agreement that covers a longer time. And there is a sample checklist of different documents that the person might bring with them. Like they could have rent receipts, utility bills, just make sure something that shows that it's them tied to their personal name. Like maybe they're working and they have a pay stub, or they received a W-2 or a 1099, or they're going to school, or they have medical records, they went to the doctor, or they go to a mosque or a church, or they have some type of, or even their social security card that has an issue date, or for example, bank transactions, or they have a car registered to them. And all these different things that they could have to show that they're currently living from that date, March 15th till that July date that you're helping them. So here, for this particular individual that we assisted, because she was in a shelter, we just did a declaration stating she lived in the shelter. We had a couple of notices of action from her social worker that she had received Medi-Cal. We had a doctor's medical center patient registration form that had a date on it. So we had to be a little bit creative on that particular case. So here we're looking at the fee waiver. So right after the cover letter, you want to make sure that in the order that you put it in, it's going to be cover letter, then fee waiver. And it's a good idea to write on your cover letters. This one doesn't have it, but like even if you handwrite fee waiver, so we'll make sure that USCIS knows that there is a fee waiver attached to this application so that they do not outright like deny it. So we're not going to go over this fee waiver because I've already reviewed fee waivers with you, and I hope everyone's with me and I'm not putting you to sleep. Okay, so now, and I did show you the notice of action. And then now we're going to the actual, wow, here's TPS. This is the form. Just give me a second to drink a second of water, and then I'll tell you how to fill out this form. Okay, here we go. So the I-821, there's a section for attorney. You're gonna leave it blank because this is a pro se clinic. And this is the initial application for TPS. You're gonna check off box 1A. And you will have a sample packet on your table in a binder in case you are filling out the application. And so I don't want you to stress about this because you're going to have a sample there. And if you have any questions, you're going to raise your hand and someone's going to go around and help you. So it asks, are you also filling a request for employment authorization? Yes. Now, if the individual you're assisting is adamant they don't want to do that, we don't want to force anybody to do anything they don't want to do, and you could go ahead and not do it. It is highly recommended best practice because of the fact that you want to help them not have a gap in lack of employment. Now, maybe somebody doesn't care to apply because they're not going to work and they don't need that documentation. You can go ahead and put no. The name of the designated country obviously is Afghanistan. And the individual's name is going to go here. Okay, so just, don't forget when you're assisting Afghan individuals, their names are oftentimes like butchered by the US government. and incorrectly put in their documents, if they go ahead and communicate to you somehow that their name is incorrect on their US issued identification, you need to raise your question card so an attorney or legal rep can come around to assist on maybe possible addendums to that application. But when you're looking at where do you look for the name, first look at anything that's government issued, which would be a prior EAD card, an I-94, or a driver license, or a state ID card. Look at those and then look at their passport, look at their Tuskegee. And if you have a question where most Afghans don't have middle names, but some do designate a middle name. So you just want to make sure you're putting the names correctly on the forms. If the person has already filled out a prior immigration form and has a receipt for it, you could see how their form was filled out and how their name was put on there too. So their mailing address, be very, very careful that it's correct. If they haven't changed their address with immigration and they have a new address, you can have them raise your question card so we can give them information on how to change their address with immigration. Okay. So their A number, I really recommend you watch that video so you understand about that. Their social security number. In this particular case, this woman did not have a social security number because she didn't, her husband didn't allow her to get one. And so, you know, the date of birth, something to be very careful with working with Afghan individuals is that the date of birth is different. It's day, month, year on certain documents. And then you want to really pay attention to, like, their passports have like the English abbreviation for the month. So it's a good verification. If they don't have a passport, which oftentimes they don't, you want to look at that government issued identification and then compare it. If there's an issue with the date of birth, raise your question card. But don't just assume that the date of birth is a certain format. If you're looking at an Afghan document, it could be day, month, year. It could also be an interpreter actually put it in the Gregorian US format, and it's actually still month, day, year. So you want to really verify this. Okay, the city of birth, I mean, it's okay. First, the gender goes here, and then the city of birth or town or village. Look at the passport, look at the Tuskegee. Make sure that this is aligned. They might tell you I was, you know, I was born in Kabul, but then you look in their on another document and you see another city name. Okay. Country of birth, Afghanistan for most. Some are born in Pakistan. You just need to verify. This question's a little tricky here. Pay attention to this. Countries of residence before entering the US. I do encourage you, I've sent you the link to the instructions of this form to read it. In the instructions, it states this just pertains to places they came, even in transit. So if they were in like Abu Dhabi, in UAE before they came, they were in transit as an evacuee, you do have to put that country, like United Arab Emirates here, or if they were on another, what was called lily pad, like a military base overseas before they came. This is countries that they either resided in or they transited through. It doesn't include, this would be countries where like on their way, countries of residence. It doesn't include countries that they resided in prior. For example, if somebody had lived for 7 years in Pakistan, but then they moved back to Afghanistan and then they went to UAE to evacuate, you would just put Afghanistan, UAE, you know, you wouldn't put the Pakistan. You can read the instructions to get more clarity because that's a very confusing question. Country or countries of citizenship or nationality would be like what nationality they have. If they have a dual passport, you're going to want to ask these questions. You don't want to miss a beat on this one. So most of them will be Afghanistan, but don't assume that everybody is just Afghanistan. Marital status would go here, remembering that separated is for immigration only used if it's legal separation. So even if they've now separated from their spouse, you're going to put married. unless they have a legal separation document. So their date of current marriage, back to that thing that I was telling you about, like dates with Afghanistan are sometimes twisted when you're looking at what I mean is most of the whole world except the US does the format day, month, year. So we're one of the only countries that does it, month, day, year. You're going to want to look at the marriage document and see if it's in the Gregorian or US format or the solar or Afghan calendar. Okay, going to question 19, date of last entry in the United States. This is going to be on their I-94. I'm going to show you this, I'm not going to skip around, I'm just going to go in a row. And then at the end, I'll show you the documentation that shows you that date of last entry. There's an entry stamp on their passport. Some people didn't have a passport. They have a piece of paper with their picture on it that the US government gave them and put a stamp on it. And then they have an I-94, which is their arrival record that I will show you. And it's in my video, and you're able to get that date. Their status is OAR parolee. Now, someone may be a different status. You can ask, do you have any other statuses, like they've changed their status to a student? This is a minority of the population you may serve, but it could happen. So you want to ask them, what is your immigration status? Now, in immigration, for those who are not practitioners, you can have dual statuses. So somebody could be an OAR parolee and also be pending asylum. They filed an asylum application, so their status would be two statuses. So where did they enter the United States? And if you have any questions when you get to this, like I said, you're going to have a question card and you raise it, and then the expert will come to your table to verify what you should put for that person. The port of entry would be where they enter the United States for the first time. And on those entry stamps, there's an abbreviation, like we'll say PHI for Philadelphia, or SFO, San Francisco, what city, and then you could figure out where they landed and then put that. And then the I-94 departure record number, then the amount of boxes here, the amount of digits that number should have. And the authorized period of stay, I wanted to go over this briefly, very briefly, that you might have somebody whose stamp says they were only authorized for 1 year, but the Mayorkas memo came out, and I don't remember exactly when, it was sometime late August. Those are for the individuals that you saw in the news. They were going, the original first people that were going on the airplanes. They were given a 1-year parole, which was later extended to a 2-year parole. So you want to make sure you compare that stamp to that I-94, which I'll show you, which is the arrival record. They might have a 1-year stamp and then they have a 2-year parole. So those are just little expert tips. Passport number, if they don't have a passport number, like I said, you don't have to go crazy with NA. Don't put that, just leave it blank. Okay. So if they did have a passport, you'd put a passport number, you'd skip travel document number, you'd skip additional passport unless they had one. And then you'd put Afghanistan if it was an Afghan passport and the expiration of that. Remember that the Afghan passport, it's easy to read the date usually. So that's a good thing. The OAR parolee, that's their current status. Like we talked about their status. Oh, sorry, go back to question 20, because I think I ill-advised you here. Here it said OAR parolee. What was your last status that you entered with? They're all going to be OAR parolee. When we get to question 31, excuse me that I told you it incorrectly, this is where you will put if they have a new status or a dual status. Like for example, OAR parolee and filed for asylum would be pending asylum. Are you now or were you ever in immigration proceedings? Most of these are going to be no. And so this area says if you answered yes. Since you didn't answer yes, you skip this and you don't have to put any dates to the proceedings. And then you're going to have like what's their ethnicity, not Hispanic or Latino. And then this issue of race, it's really split. Some want to put white and some individuals would like to identify as Asian. I just ask, without parking on it too long and see what they say. Their height, weight, keeping in mind that most of them don't equate their height or weight in our US measurement systems. Usually I can get this information clearly from their driver license or US ID card. If they have a California issued ID card, try to look there instead of asking them verbally, and then verify with them at the end. And their eye color and hair color will also be on there. If their hair color obviously has changed or something like that, you can update this. However, it should be their natural hair color. And if you have any questions on that, let me know. If they don't know their child's weight, they can do an approximation or height. Okay, so if they had a spouse, they would put the A number if they knew. The A number stands for alien number. And if you watch that video, you'll find out where to find it. And the last name and first name of their spouse, the address of the spouse, the date of birth of the spouse, the date of marriage, where they got married, province. You can Google this if you don't know. You just put their city of birth and Google their province. And if their spouse had TPS, it's likely going to be no, but you want to ask. And if they had any former spouses. Okay. A number of children, you're going to start children. Their Afghan families are large. You're going to be going to a continuation page. So you may not, but you may. And if they only give you space for 2 children, and then over here's this additional information page where the person's name is going to be filled in, their A number, and you're going to put what page, what part number, child 3, child 4, child 5. And if you need more, you can ask for an addendum page from me. Or you could just put it on a blank piece of paper with their A number and continue the children. Okay, where were we? I lost my spot. Okie dokie, we were at children. And then it asks you the address of the children. And if the child has or had TPS, and if you know this, if the child is applying currently for TPS. Okay, so if they have children that are applying, they put yes. In this case, the person's children were already established in the US and they were not applying for TPS. So here in part 7, we're talking about national of, it's just for eligibility of Afghanistan. And it talks about what date they entered. Have you ever traveled to enter another country other than the one you listed before you asked? If you hear the yes, the person went to Qatar. And the dates, this is in the evacuation. So I put what they asked, what was the status of the person there? They didn't have status, they were evacuee in transit. You can phrase this in different ways. Have you ever been offered any immigration status by another country that you didn't accept? No. These are, similar to questions to what would be like on an asylum bar, would be like a bar to. So the questions that are going to be asked on page 7 going forward are going to try to decipher, is this person having an inadmissibility, or is this person have a bar that would like bar them from applying for TPS? So if any of the questions, like when you get to these criminal offenses, is like a yes, so we're going to have all these questions translated in Dari, hopefully in Pashto too, but we have a little bit of problem. If anyone out there is a Pashto proficient, hit me up, please, because I need these questions translated. But basically, these questions will be at your table and you will be able to show it to them. If the person is ill, don't assume that somebody can read. Please don't make this assumption. Somebody could be illiterate. And at that point, you would have to ask for an interpreter. Okay. So when they ask, have you ever committed any felony and a misdemeanor? If they had 2 felonies, we're not going to get into the specifics, but 2 felonies would bar them. So most of these individuals just arrived in August to November of last year, and they don't have much, but they could have a criminal record already. We don't know, so we can't make any assumptions, and we have to go very diligently through the questions. You're not really on the hook. They're the person who's answering this. You just want to make sure they have the correct information. They may not know an answer to it. They can always fill this out later We're going to be providing them these questions in Dari and hopefully Pashto, and an interpreter will be available to read them any question if they wanted to verbally listen to it. So I encourage you to please review these, because I would like to save time to hear your questions, and if you have any, so I would like to just kind of skip over these, but they're not to be skipped over. You should definitely, before you come, have read all of these questions and be familiar with them. Many of the questions are just addressing if the person would be inadmissible and would flag if they would not. If there is a yes, it does state up here on the form. Maybe it's in the directions. No, it says it here that if you do have a yes, usually you have to provide an explanation why, and you can make an explanation in the additional information or provide a separate addendum. But if you do have a yes in this type of setting, you should 100% raise your hand and have me come over to your table to evaluate whether or not this person should be applying for TPS. Okay, so going back to here, I can understand English. Don't put I can understand English if the person did not understand the entire form. The person may understand half the form, but they used an interpreter. Go ahead and put what language the interpreter was, and that you prepared it. This particular one, we didn't have prepare listed for a particular reason. So here, their contact number of the applicant, and then they're going to certify, the interpreter will fill this out. The interpreter will put the Parse Equality Center as their address, because there are volunteers, and then they will make sure to sign. If the person brought a family member that's interpreting for them, you should instruct them to sign. Remind everybody to stay in the box as much as possible and sign with black or blue ink, and clearly sign. Then you're going to fill out this preparers section and say that if you are not an attorney, or if you're an attorney, which most of you are, and that your representation does not extend beyond the preparation of this application, and you're going to sign and date that. And remember, if you need addendums, let me know. So I'm going to show you some samples. I did not leave all the addendums here to this particular application, but these are some, this is an example of an I-94 that was from the CBP application. It just tells you OAR, Operation Allies Rescue, parolee, that's what they are, and the date of their entry and when they're admitted until, and their A number and everything. And then this is the example of a Tuscarora. There's many examples, so I encourage you to watch the video. And the Tuscarora just make sure you're not allowing them to submit something to USCIS or immigration without like a certification of translation. The translations don't need to be formal. So if the person has like a Tuscarora but doesn't have a translation, we will provide them with this template, and somebody that they know can also translate it. We also have samples like for the different things. So this is Tuscarora, the Dari version. And this is a sample of a Afghan passport with a lot of redaction. And okay, so now we're going to review the final form before I open it up to questions. This would be the EAD, or employment authorization. We're going to be explaining to individuals before they come to the clinic why they need to file for an EAD, but they may still have questions. So go ahead and raise your hand if they have one during the clinic. So here you're going to leave this section blank again because you're not going on record. This is kind of not, I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive because they're asking, what are you going to apply? Why I'm applying for initial permission, replacement, or renewal. Like it seems like none of them apply because they already have an EAD card that's valid, for example, but you're going to put initial because it's an initial one for that category. So if they have an EAD card, you're still going to check initial permission, okay? Unless their EAD card, they never had an EAD card, of course, that would be initial. And it's never going to be replacement for the TPS because they haven't applied for TPS. You're applying for a new work permit under a new category. Okay. And just want to, before I go on, I'm sorry, let me check one thing. Because let me get to the section of what category we're filing under. Okay, got it. So currently they're under C11. It would say C11 on their work permits. And it's going to say C19 is going to be the one that you're going to apply for. So there's going to be a packet, like I said, of everything with a sample when you get to the office. Okay, so you're going to put their name, if they've used any other names, and then their mailing address again. Okay. And then their physical, if they have a different address for their physical address, and their A number, their gender, their marital status. Have you previously filed, like this particular individual, like I said, didn't have any documents? That's very rare. But you likely will say yes, they had one. And has Social Security like ever officially given you a Social Security card? This one, it says no, but typically it's yes. And then you would typically put the Social Security number. If it's no, you can request one on this form. And so that's what I've done for this particular individual. Do you want them to issue it? You typically say no if they have one, unless they lost it or something. Or you could put yes if they don't have one. And then if you do want one, if you answered no, you skip this section with the father and mother and consent. But if you are requesting a social, you put yes in their father and mother's name. And then here it asks you, list all countries where you are currently a citizen or national. And here it's Afghanistan for this particular person, and the village or city of birth, their province, Afghanistan here for their country of birth and their date of birth, and then their I-94 number. These are all material that we discussed previously. Their passport number, travel document number is usually blank. The country that issued Afghanistan, the expiration, these are all self-explanatory. The place of their last arrival would be like their entry stamp. And like we discussed, their status on their last arrival, OAR parolee, currently OAR parolee. And then their category, you're going to put C19 for their category. C19 is the category for individuals that are applying for TPS. That and this is going to be, they might ask you, oh, will I get this new EAD card before? They could possibly get it before the decision on the TPS, because if it's prima facie like complete, then it would be issued whenever they process it. As long as on its face the application for TPS is complete, they will issue it. So this is for individuals that are pending TPS, not for individuals that have an approved TPS. So this is where it gets a little weird, because you're going to leave a lot of stuff empty, like 28, 28A, B, C. These are all different categories of EADs. You're going to leave these blank. But then all of a sudden I've circled this because in the middle of all this stuff you're supposed to ignore, there's question 30A. Have you ever been arrested? They put this in this weird spot. So 90% of paralegals miss this one. And have you ever been arrested or charged or convicted of any crime in any country, not just US? You answer this question. And if you answered yes, obviously the person should raise their hand. If you have any crim that comes up, it's usually not good and conducive for a pro se clinic. The person needs legal advice from an immigration attorney. So this is another question that's often missed. Did you enter the US 30B? I'm talking about, did you enter the US lawfully through a US port of entry? They have if they're parolees. Most everybody will be yes. And then if no, you would answer the rest, which we've left blank because the answer is yes. And these pertain to different categories, C35, 36, you're gonna skip all these. And then going back to the statement, reiterating again, make sure this is accurate. If they can read and understand the entire form, they understand English, or they used an interpreter and you're the preparer, and the applicant's information. And I really want to reiterate, the signature on this particular form must stay in this little box and not go out. This particular one is very imperative. We don't want these people to have like a delay, because they already have a bunch of delays they're facing. So the interpreter, if there was an interpreter, would certify here and sign. And then you would be preparer if you're an attorney, but you don't extend beyond the preparation, same as what we discussed before. And then there would be supporting documentation that you would offer in that section where afterwards. So don't assume like we're gonna have instructions with the cover letter when you get here, that they might have to have two, like for example, you might have like their I-94 in one place, and then you also have it behind the 765, because there's a chance they will be decoupled and processed separately. So you want to make sure that your documentation for the 765 exists behind that application as well for best practices. And I think I covered a lot. And I know you all may feel a little bit intimidated, or may feel like, wow, that's a lot. I just want to encourage you not to worry, I'm here. And I hope that it was clear.
Yes, it was. Sorry, I don't know what. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, that was clear. Does anybody have any questions?
I see a question in the chat about do these questions about criminal activity, etc., relate only to what they've done while in the US? No, it relates to anywhere in the world. And that's why, some people are wrongly arrested, like they could have been like wrongly arrested somewhere. Like we see it a lot with our Iranian clients and others, like you would, and that still would be like an arrest. So you would still need to document that. Okay, so another person asked, how many cases do you think we'll get through during the clinic? Right now we're in the process of figuring out how many of you lovely volunteers we have. And I am a really big proponent of quality over quantity, connection over misconnection. And the way that I run this project is to make a connection with a family and individual, to provide them quality advice, to make sure they feel supported. So we're probably going to hit the number 20 family units.
Mhm.
And that's significant, because the 20 family units could have, we could be looking at like 50 people impact, or 70, depending on how many family members get impacted based on the sample that you've provided. One thing I want to reiterate, let's just say, for example, you have a family of 10 and they're pushing you to like, please do all the forms for all 10. They're going to be given like a 1 hour slot with you. It's not practical. You're going to be doing one sample packet for them. And then we're going to be emailing every attendee information about how to do this. We're going to be sending them in the few coming weeks after, like videos in Dari and Pashto, and they're going to be able to replicate your quality work. So don't feel pressure the day of like, oh, I need to do 7 of these right now. Do one really good one and give them a sample. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. All that supporting documentation, if they don't have something, does it just get kind of, are they sent away or to get the stuff, or how do we deal with it?
Very good question, Rashmi. So the way that I'd like you to handle that is write down what you like. We're going to have samples of items that they can have for supporting, like documentation. Like, let's say they didn't have a verification of benefits letter, or they didn't have any documentation of their residency that they brought, or somehow they forgot to bring it. So you won't be able to like do a complete job that day, you will be able to do whatever you can and then write sticky notes and notes for them of what else they need to provide in there. So we're going to have flags at your table. We're going to have sticky notes, and we're going to have interpreters that could talk to them and guide them. We even have like a form in English, and it says on the top in Dari and Pashto, they can take it to social services to get their verifications. So it's going to be like, pro se clinics are a little messy, just to give you that. I want you to feel comfortable like in the mess, because there's somebody has to do the messy work, right? And
Yeah.
so we're going to be doing it. It's messy. Like there's some people that have everything and they're super organized. They come with like a suitcase. I had a guy roll a suitcase in. He's like, everything in my family is in this suitcase. There's people that are super highly educated and fluent, and they know how to, do everything themselves. They practically don't even need your help. You're like, why did you come? And then there's others who will show up and you're like, oh my gosh, they can't even read anything. And I'm so excited to help this illiterate individual to get, so there's all kinds you're going to meet that day.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Sorry, that was a mouthful. So I know that it's like, there's so much I've left out about TPS, about the, like, why would somebody who filed for asylum file for TPS? Just so you know ahead of time, this particular clinic, we're opening it up to individuals that we've like screened prior that are our priority for TPS. Which means like they don't have anybody filing like an asylum application for them, or they're not even on anybody's waiting list. Like our wait list for asylum is now closed until so they didn't even make it on our waiting list. And so these are individuals that we have determined are the most urgent for TPS. So that's going to be how we operate, who we select for the 19 or 20 family units. People are so, right now, you guys, so desperate for this help. I just had a guy over here like in tears before I started this. They came, they're like, who's going to help us with TPS? We have to file TPS. They're so, even though they have time, they're so afraid, and like, who's going to do this paperwork for us? And it's so daunting because like they literally just have already faced so many daunting circumstances.
Seema, thank you so much for providing this training on behalf of Salva North America. Deepest appreciation. What we'll do, Suchi will, and the team will follow up with those who have signed up for the Zoom link. We're going to provide a registration link for the pro bono clinic, just to make sure we have enough information. And for those who couldn't make today's training, they'll receive, and everyone will receive the training link, so that if you want to follow up and just remember, there was a lot of details provided, Seema, and you did kind of do an amazing job getting us through all of the intricacies, but I expect that there might be questions on the day of. Suchi, any follow-up?
No, I just wanted to express thank you again to Seema for this awesome training and for being such a great partner to work with. This is something that we have been wanting to do since everything kind of went down at during the summer of last year. And so this is just, one small way that we can help those who are here, with dealing with everything that they're having to go through. So thank you so much for this, and for the opportunity.
Of course. And, I want you all to know, and some of you will be busy and this will be the only time you're going to do a TPS, action for anyone or assistance. But some of you may actually decide, oh, I can do this and I want to do it virtually from where I'm located, and we could set that up, or I want to do this, again, and I'm local to your offices. So whatever it is, like, we're open. And I want to make one correction, because I'm like very hard on myself these days. And if I don't make this correction, can I share my screen one last time for this one correction?
Yes, go ahead.
And I apologize. There was a very big mistake on one of my first slides on a very important thing. And I apologize because I've been just doing nonstop clinics and asylum work, and my slide had a wrong date. And so my heart did a free fall in the beginning of the presentation. So I have sent you certain, I don't know where it is here, links. And this is the USCIS website regarding Afghanistan.
Mhm.
And it shows you the designation period and the registration period. I had incorrectly put a typo on my slide, said November 20th, 2022. Obviously that's very wrong, or else we would be in dire trouble right now because we have thousands of people to register and not enough time. So the registration period is May 20th, 2022 through November 20th, 2023. I will update my slides and send them to Tara and Suchi so they can send them out. And so I want to make sure I correct that. So if you're talking to someone, you just want to make sure you remember that they have till November 2023 to file. And TPS, like, so you're gonna have questions. So we're gonna have like a checkout sheet for you. You're gonna have questions. It's like, oh, when am I gonna get this? They think, oh, because a lot of people, they've had like very great delays and then also some instant things happen. So they have no idea. And we don't honestly know the timeline for TPS for Afghans. We believe it's gonna be like almost a year.
Okay.
So they might just be in this like limbo, but it's very important that they file for those EADs because the work permits, because oftentimes the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, they will state that there's an extension to that EAD card. You don't want these. I mean, I had a guy here crying earlier with his wife because their EAD cards were expired. They were the people who came like first off the planes and they had a 1-year EAD card. So we don't want that gap to happen. So just as a repeating that it's November 2023. So they don't, even if they come to the Pro Se clinic, they receive all this information. You kind of feel like down because I know like, oh, everyone, I mean, a lot of people are perfectionists these days, unfortunately. You're like, gosh, I didn't get to finish it. I mean, they have time to submit their application. So you've just like really planted a huge seed. And then PARS, the Quality Centers project, Afghan Support Project, which I'm managing, is going to be releasing videos in their native language on how to do it.
Okay.
So we're going to send this to everyone who comes. So
Right.
they're going to, it's like sometimes you have to do it in layers,
Yeah. Oh, can I just say one more thing? So the person who has really been helping on this and really been setting this up from Saba's side has been Priya Prasad, and she's actually in the midst of moving. So she couldn't join us tonight, but I just wanted to give a shout out to her and just to thank her for actually making the connection with SEMA and really putting this all together. So just wanted to make sure she got some recognition as well.
There you go, Suchi. I'm so glad you brought that up because it was, I was like talking somewhere like we were on some conference call and then she was like, oh, I want to do this for the Saba conference. And so like, it was her vision, and it's amazing how one person's vision could just come alive and get everybody together. I will ensure whoever comes to this event will have the best Saba conference they've ever had. Because
Awesome.
you're going to be like so warmed in your heart for what we're going to experience here.
Awesome.
Yeah, and for the group that's on the call and those that'll listen to this training later, again, this is the first pro bono project for Saba North America. It's being introduced at the San Francisco conference, and we're very, very excited to partner with PARS Equality Center. Not for the first time. I think this is the third time in the last year as part of our Afghan Relief Task Force. And so we look forward to continued partnerships with PARS Equality Center. And the hope is that this pro bono clinic will, result in future clinics that will support the Afghan community that's entering into the United States or have already entered into the United States. Seema, I feel a little better knowing that there's an extra year. So
Me too.
Oh my gosh, like when I saw that date, I was like, oh, I know this is wrong. But then I got, I had a little numerical weirdness. So I had to like make
that's
sure.
okay.
I cleared that up.
I'm just teasing you. I think the enormity of like having to do this by November 2022 was a little bit disconcerting. So I'm glad we have a little extra time. So if there needs to be follow-up, there can be.
Sure.
And
I just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
go
Sorry
ahead,
about that.
Seema.
I was gonna say how excited I am about your conference because, and I don't know why I'm not a Saba member. I have to be already. Like, I'm just like, I
You're
need to
not a
be-
Mary member. We'll make you a member.
Oh, thank you. I would love it. It would be an honor. And Saba, I forgot who reached out to me, but Saba Cares.
Mhm.
They're doing a project that I connect to them here at FRC with Afghan Coalition, which is one of our partners. And you guys are going to be doing these grooming kits and
Yeah.
creating grooming kits for individuals, and we have the pod here in the parking lot, and right now the pod is mostly empty and there's almost nothing in it because everything has been given away. So
Wow.
we're so excited to have these grooming kits that we could give to our clients and the clinic visitors in the future. So thank you so much for those involved with that.
Yeah, this is a really big year, and obviously Saba's legitimately committed to the Afghan cause. We also have a program, Crisis in Afghanistan and Ukraine. This is a big project for Saba North America that we're taking on in multiple ways. But the primary one is to get help for the Afghan people. So we look forward to seeing you, Seema, at the conference, and we will be there. Those that have signed up for the conference, Pro Bono Project will be there, and we will follow up with additional information. Because I don't want to take any more time than necessary, Suchi, unless there's anything else, we're going to conclude today's training.
Yes.
And if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to Suchi Sucharita Varanasi or Priya Prasad with respect to any of the logistical details with respect to the clinic. For those who attend, there will be food provided by Saba. We have to figure that out, but there will be, Seema, you might have some good recommendations of where we need to go. And then if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to the conference team. Charan Brahma, who's on this call, he's the VP of conference. Samir Mehta, who is our president, myself, Tara Raghavan, or a question on the shuttle from the Westin. I think we're actually going to work using
Ubers or
the
Lyft.
BART. So we are trying to follow up with that. We think just travel using public transportation may be the easiest. So we're going to work those details out in the next few days. Okay. Thanks everyone.
You so much for volunteering. We're looking forward to having you with open arms, and just come on out and we'll take care of the rest. Don't forget to look at the email that we've sent you.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.